literally anyone can get into endurance sports. We can all do it. You just need to enjoy it. You got to want to be there and dive into it.
Welcome to the Trail Chasers podcast. I'm your host, Dean Horwitz, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. Each week, we'll be hitting the trails with some of South Africa's most inspiring trail runners, diving into the topics that matter most and uncovering the secrets of this incredible sport. Lace up your trail shoes and join me on this adventure. New episodes every week. Jazmine, welcome to the Trail Chasers and welcome to Cape Town. First time in Cape Town?
First time Cape Town, first time to Africa, so super stoked. And
amazing.
Man, just diving into this new world.
I really wanted to have you on just because I keep saying this, like I really enjoy interviewing people who have a bit of depth and a bit of like layers, you know, rather than it's just like, oh, I won this competition or I won that competition. And I was just obviously reading through, you know, like your about and your history, and there's a lot that we can kind of chat about.
Yeah, wherever you want to go.
Yeah, exactly. So there are a lot of really relevant topics that are, and things that you've kind of faced that that I think really resonate with people. Mm-hmm. So I want to start with a bit of a visualization exercise. So I'm not sure what your last race was. What was?
It was technically the Rut 50K,
okay.
Over Montana. And then I did Speed Goat before that. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Take me back to that race. You know, what is the kind of like preparation for that race the night before, the morning of? What is the start line? You know, do you have kind of like rituals that you kind of do on the start line?
Yeah, totally. And to preface this story, I actually signed up very much on a whim. It was like 5 days before the race.
Wow, okay.
It was not planned on my race schedule or anything. And that was because I had just been at CCC, the UTMB World Series finale race, and my first DNF. So got to join the old did not finish club. And It was very apparent from almost the start of the race that it was just not going to happen that day. My knee was like seizing up. I had some runner's knee. It just, whatever. On that day, it blew up. 2 weeks later, though, things were feeling great. And I just happened to be in Montana, the Rut 50K, which is an amazing race. It's super badass. A really cool technical mountain 50K. And my knee was feeling better, so I jumped on in, and it all worked out. So my pre-race, I do have like little routines here and there for sure. Everything like the week of, you know, into taper every day. I take it day by day, really like listening to my body and, you know, trying to get in some strides here and there, all those things, lots of sleep. It is very nice when I can come to a different country and get on the sleep schedule here. And, you know, this race starts at 4 a.m. So I'm thinking about that in my head a little bit right now. I usually have like good old pasta dinner and keep it really simple, nice boring meals, and try to just chill out, do some foam rolling, maybe some visualization, and then just go distract myself and talk with friends and things like that. So just have like a little bit of that, like those pre-race butterflies, but not let it get to me too much that it can become like, you know, keeping you up and not being able to sleep and stuff like that. So have a little bit here, but then a little bit just away from the race vibes and all those things.
And on the start line, is it still nerves, or is it like you're confident in the zone?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Usually I go through like this full head mess around where it's like, oh shit, like here we are at this race, and you know, you're looking at your competition and things like that, and you're starting to be like, oh, I should have done this, or I should have trained harder, and all those doubts kind of start to feed into the mind. But then I find once I'm physically at the start line and like, you know, there's all that energy in the air that you can feel that is, it's just electric. Then it's just like, you know what, we're here to like celebrate running, and we're all doing this together. this is the big dance that we've all been preparing for.
Yeah.
So I really dig that. And at that point, I just turn on and feel like, all right, I'm ready. I'm here for it.
And looking back, off the sort of top of your head, what were the kind of key moments in your journey? I suppose trail running, but I mean, we can go, further and deeper into some of the other sports that you've been involved in if you'd like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've definitely had like some rises and some falls. Everything from having my own dark horse moment. That was probably like the most pivotal moment for my career was lining up at Canyon's 100K in 2022 and having no idea what was about to happen that day. But just being an unsponsored athlete and just another average Joe lining up and then like being able to win and break a course record from Beth Pascal, who holds this course record. Well, I don't know. I guess there's some, the course has changed a fair bit over the years, but much respect. And just being completely astonished. And that's what I love about trail and ultra running is like literally anyone can get into endurance sports and we can all do it. You just need to enjoy it. You got to want to be there and dive into it. So it's cool when you see dark horse elements rising in this sport still to this day. And I mean, even for a race like this, you never know. Anyone who lines up, they have a shot at it. They have a shot at the podium, and for everyone, it's a good time. And then I've had some lows going through injuries, things like that, and just going through everything, like the grief of losing running in life, and but then coming back full circle, and right now having a healthy body and knock on wood, all those things. So
you're fairly new to trail running. What was the kind of the spark for you that kind of lit that fire?
I basically started my trail running journey technically in 2019, but then really dove into it during COVID in 2020. And before that, I was into rock climbing, alpine climbing, mountaineering, things like that. I think what drew me to it, I guess a few things. So I am like a sciencey person. My background, I was a biologist previous to this. And I think I just fell in love with the training and getting to understand physiology, anatomy, just running in general has a lot of science behind it, and you can really dive into that. And especially when you're getting into it, you can just see like the progress that you make. It's so tangible. It's like, whoa, I could not run up that hill like a month or two ago. And then you just like start to see these cool milestones that you just tick off the longer that you're in the sport. So that part. And then I think, I got into it during COVID, so there were no races. But that almost lended itself really well to just incubating this passion for adventure and getting out into the mountains and just seeing where your 2 feet can take you. And, you start to chew off like bigger distances and do more mountain peaks all in one run. And then it just sparks this curiosity for, oh, okay, if I can do that, then maybe I can, do something else that just kind of makes you a little scared, but definitely makes you excited.
You mentioned the sort of rock climbing and that kind of that background. Obviously, that had a major impact on, so it's almost like one of those 10-year success story, overnight success story, 10-year in the making. Yeah. What drew you to that sport and what was that transition like?
I was obsessed with rock climbing. If you know any climbers, they will like talk to you about climbing 24/7.
Sounds like trail runners.
Yeah. But they're like, they're literally like going through the moves and like, oh, heel hook here, and you're doing like a mantle and like all these different things. And you can get pretty nerd out on it. Yeah, climbing, again, you're facing different challenges. It's funny, I think about it all the time in terms of like some of the similarities, but then some of the differences. Climbing can be very like intense for very specific moments, and it's usually kind of like a shorter amount of time. You're moving through a crux, and there might be like 3 to 5 moves that you need, like full focus. It takes all of like the cells of your body to synchronize and get through this movement. Whereas running, yeah, you might hit like a crux or like a wall, which could be something physical or mental in a race or at a really hard moment that could take hours in ultra running. And you've got to like work through that and hope that you're going to get to the light at the end of the tunnel. So it is interesting. I do think that having the climbing mentality has lended itself really well to, facing new problem solving, things like that. And then I think just like the confidence being out there on different terrain, scrambling, exposure, reading routes. When you're out there, it definitely is like those skills I use all the time. Still super grateful.
Was there a moment where you were like, I'm done with climbing, I'm starting trail? Or was it just like a gradual, like, it just suddenly changed and you didn't know how, but it just happened?
Yeah, it was a gradual, like slow, like I didn't want to say goodbye to climbing. And I was dearly holding on tight to both of them. After my first race, it was like, okay, I'm going to start to train for running. I'm starting to work with a coach, all these things. And I was super stubborn, like, no, I'm still going to get in my climbs and stuff like that. And I think, it was like classic runner syndrome where you're like, oh, I can do all of this for sure. I can be like superwoman and go for a long run, and then I'll go climbing in the afternoon. But it hit me pretty hard. I realized like, well, you're burning the candle at 2 different ends. And like, even though they use for the most part lots of different muscles, things like that, they do affect each other. And unless if you're like, not working a job or anything, maybe you could pull it off decently. But it's a lot on the body. And I think it was just like, all right, if I want to start to master running, I'm going to have to like say goodbye to climbing. You go through life and you realize like I can go back to climbing someday if I want to. And I mean, it's always going to be there. And hopefully I can just keep those skills alive and still get out on some nice, gentle alpine routes, things like that. But it was gradual. And I think I just realized like, you can be a jack of all trades or master of one. Yeah. And sometimes that's just how it is.
Yeah. And what is the ultimate pull for trail running over climbing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, I think it was just discovering this talent that I was very curious in seeing like where it could go. There was that. And then just the exploration side, whether you're traveling or in your own backyard, being able to cover large distances and those sorts of things. I do think I have that mindset that works well for endurance sports. And, there can be monotony in it, but going for 4-hour runs or whatever, even cycling, and I've been getting into that a lot more lately. I do think certain people are kind of drawn to that. And it works for me.
You grew up in British Columbia. And when I think of it, I think it's quite like a foresty green. Yeah. So I'm sure that had like a major influence. But yeah, what was that influence, growing up, on what you're doing today?
Yeah. BC is very, lots of mountain ranges. I grew up in a small mountain ski town, and I think it just instilled in me this definitely a passion for the environment. And that's why I went the route of working as a biologist for so many years. But yeah, I mean, whether it was skiing, biking, getting out there, and definitely a sense for adventure. Yeah, where I grew up, there's a fair amount of trails, but there's actually not that many trails that go into like the alpine and things. So oftentimes you're finding your own routes. Usually it's like, whether it's bushwhacking, things like that. You can get very far out there. It can be super remote. It can be like 5 hours, away from a small community, things like that. So yeah, it definitely created this sense of, whether it was like independence or just like feeling comfortable being far away from civilization. Yeah.
And what's the Canadian trail running community like?
It's growing. Yeah. I think even when I first got into this, like 4 or 5 years ago, it felt very, very small. I mean, the town I grew up in, there's like 4 or 5 of us runners that were doing some wild things. But now my hometown, Nelson, British Columbia, it's got like a budding, blossoming trail running scene. And now they have like a backyard ultra that's coming up. And I think they had 50 people doing this, like a backyard ultra. That's like a lot of people going out and seeing how far they can run. Yeah, so it's just astounding to see how much the trail running community, like all over the world, but when it's in your own backyard, it's like, whoa, this is cool.
How does it feel to kind of be like the face of this kind of like movement that's kind of growing, in Canada?
Yeah, one of them.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's pretty wild for sure. It's crazy, and yeah, definitely in a short amount of time, and I'm still learning a lot of the people who have paved the way, and yeah. So no, it's an honor, and yeah, definitely want to rep the old maple leaf here and there for sure.
You're a biologist by profession. Was that always a passion? When do you when was the first time that kind of was like, oh, this is what I want to do for a career?
Yeah, when I was super young, I grew up on like a small farm, and was always playing around in the different streams and on our acreage and things like that. So yeah, I think I knew almost right away from a young age I wanted to get into biology and just study the world and get to know the plants and animals, all the things like that. Yeah, so, and I think I try to still keep that in my athletic career, different things, helping out with, trail weed pulls, things like that. Keep spreading the word just to keep people like aware, especially of our impact as trail runners in the environmental space. Yeah.
And do you still work in the space?
Technically, no. Yeah. Okay. I did do the leap of faith, jump ship. It's been 2 years now, just working more so as an athlete, and then now coaching and writing, different things.
Yeah. And how's that transition been?
It went really well. Was very scary, most definitely, leaving stability and then just kind of seeing where this would take me. I think what I've learned, especially becoming more self-employed, is that there's a lot of opportunities that are out there. And once you put yourself into that world, it can almost be overwhelming at times, and you just see so many different pathways. I mean, probably even with things like this podcast, there's just, especially these days, it's just wild how much the world has changed. And I'm doing things like working remotely, living in a van. So sometimes I'm checking all my emails. I'll be up at the top of a mountain pass. There's cell phone service, and I can do my training. It's just wild. It's like, it is a dream come true, and I feel super lucky. But yeah, I think for anyone else who's thinking of doing it, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah. How have you kind of applied that scientific kind of mind from the biology into your running and obviously now into your coaching?
I love reading, research, any sort of literature. So even writing. So I've also been writing about whether it's training or women's health, or even blending environmental impact of trail running and just things to be aware of, and then kind of bridging that gap from scientific literature to just everyday people. That's hugely rewarding, and being able to still keep that part of myself alive is really nice. And then with coaching, training, all those things, science is always evolving, and we're learning so much every day, from our wearables to the future of sport. Is a little bit scary, but I mean, it's exciting. There's a lot of things that are coming down the pipe, and it feels like quite the time to be alive.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a split in trail running, I guess, at the moment in terms of science versus feel. And how do you kind of balance that? Is there a time and place for both, or is it kind of like you strictly science based?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I'm like hardcore science. I'm not like testing my lactate, all those things. But I probably actually embody training and running by feel. Like, even my training is very intuitive, and in terms of is seeing how I feel on a certain day. It's like, okay, today is the day to do the workout of the week. Things like that. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see where tech goes with AI and stuff like that. But for now, I do like to mostly go by feel, and then I like to have the science there beside me, and glancing over and checking numbers, things like that. So yeah, definitely using both for sure.
Imagine you've had a hectic 2024. You've run a lot of races. You've put in a lot of effort. Now, cast your mind over to the clear waters of Zanzibar. Beyond white sand beaches, a dial sails across the horizon, and there you are, chilling in your hammock with your well-deserved rest for a hard-earned 2024. Want to make that happen? Check out Luggage Warehouse's Black Friday competition. One lucky shopper will win a return ticket to Zanzibar worth 9,000 Rand. Or you can trade it in for 4,500 Rand in cash, which you can use towards your race entries, your nutrition, or your gear for next year's running. Any purchase, big or small, gets you in the draw, and it's easy to enter. Just shop at luggagewarehouse.co.za or in their Cape Town and Joburg stores during Black Friday week. And if you want a bonus entry, sign up for Luggage Warehouse's newsletter and you'll get one when you make your purchase. Head over to luggagewarehouse.co.za/Zanzibar for the details. T's and C's apply. What brings you to UTCT?
Yeah. I've been trying to get here for 2 or 3 years, and finally it lined up this year just perfectly. So super grateful to finally get to Cape Town. This race just looks really stellar, like the course, the vibe, and I can say it's been an incredibly warm welcome here to South Africa. Right now I'm just blown away by the people, the culture, the food, and I know that there's like a whole other world to explore and dive into here. And I can tell you, already I'm like, how can I get back and spend more time here? And South Africa is just, tip of exploring more on the continent of Africa. So.
And what are you kind of most looking forward to about the race?
Yeah, I feel like this race is going to be an adventure. I think the course lends itself a little bit of everything, but definitely like the technicality. And then, there's some hoops to jump over, from running on beaches and getting a little sandy, to like some scrambling and going up some rocks, and lots of like different kinds of rocks all over the place. And then like the forest scene, and then getting up onto Table Mountain, and just like up, down, up, down. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, fingers crossed it's not a super hot day. That would be great. Yeah. Little breeze, that would be amazing. So from the heat, the ocean, to the forests and mountains, it's going to be pretty rad.
Do you have goals for the race, or is it kind of you're going in there just to do your best type thing?
I mean, there will always be goals. At the end of the day, it's like, just go out there, have my best day on the day of, feel good with that. But yeah, I mean, I am here to hopefully do well. And I'm excited to be racing some other ladies out there, and it should be a good time.
We mentioned a little bit about that 2002 kind of the breakout year. The win at Canyons and UTMB as well. What did those experiences kind of teach you? What were the kind of lessons that you took from those races?
Yeah. Oh man. I think it's always just believe in yourself more than you do at this point. I think I always walk away feeling like, well, I could have believed in myself a lot more. I mean, enjoy it. And this is kind of like the icing on the cake. There's like all the pillars of training behind you. And it always feels like such a celebration and things like that. So, but I think the main thing is believing in yourself.
What was, if you look at like pre-Canyons and post-Canyons, what it kind of, I mean, obviously everything changed, but, what were kind of like the big differences and the big changes?
It's wild. I mean, life can change just in a moment like that. I think now my life is much more ingrained in it. I mean, it was there before and I was hungry for it. I maybe didn't really know what I was hungry for, but I definitely always had this, like, whether it's a competitive edge or just this fire, and now it's ever present. I think it's now more of a job, so there are like responsibilities and there can be pressures, though the pressure is usually coming from myself. But yeah, at the end of the day, it now is a job, and there are responsibilities attached to that. So I do take it more seriously and with a lot more strategy, a lot more planning and forethought and structure. But you got to have all that, but then still keep like the passion, the play, all those other things that really make the experience rich and make you wanting to still be there.
Yeah.
Keep coming back. So yeah, you got to balance those two for sure.
Yeah. How do you do that?
Yeah.
Still trying to figure it out.
Totally. No. I think I thrive off of like novelty. So keeping it fun, checking out new areas. I do like kind of out there wacky ideas, whether it's like, if you're in your hometown and there's like this one mountain peak that's always like staring at you in the face, then it's like, all right, you've probably been up there a ton of times already, but then what if you do like 5 times in one day or something? And I mean, people are doing Everest challenges, things like that. So I do like to bring that into my training, just like crazy ideas that make you like a little scared. And then, yeah, it could also be as simple as like chasing Strava segments or like, I don't know, just things like that. Just make it a little extra fun, have like a little fitness test here and there, spice it up a bit. And that does go a long way in terms of like, just keeping the cycle going and keeping it fun.
You mentioned you had a coach in the beginning. Are you self-coached now, or you still have a coach?
Yeah, I'm kind of like an in-between right now.
Okay.
I mean, I have hopped around with different coaches. My teammate, Michelino Sinceri, who will also be racing here, has been coaching me. I would say I was coaching a little bit more towards Cape Town. The 100Ks, I would say, are a bit more my bread and butter. So I just wanted to make sure I was hitting a few key things. But absolutely, having a coach, and I now call us more like accountability buddies, keeping each other in check, things like that. And that way it's just, I can throw some ideas and we can talk about it. Usually it's like pulling the reins back a little bit, staying smart and training smart. I think those are some of the things, like, you know, I've had injuries, things like that. And I think just having someone that you can check in with goes a long way.
And how has your kind of training and your coaching evolved over the last like 5 years? Would you, if you reflect back on it?
My training for sure is more structured. I do still like to have like, you know, big mountain days where I'm getting a lot of vertical on my legs. That has just worked well for me and it keeps me healthy. I do have to be careful, you know, things with speed work, flat running, pavement pounding, things like that. I am a bit more injury prone if I go into those, so I gotta load carefully for sure. Overall the training, I think it's just gotten more with more purpose and intention behind every run. And try not to have like, whether it's too many junk miles or, training sessions, even at the gym, going there with like purpose for sure. Time is value. Yeah. And then coaching. Yeah, I do bring my kind of essence towards running into my coaching. So I want the athletes that I work with to feel like they've got purpose. They're going towards something on their journey towards that like pinnacle thing that they're training for. They're going to have like stepping stones, and those stepping stones will keep it interesting along the way. Their passion is being bolstered by that process. And my coaching is very holistic. So when I talk to people, I really want to know them as a person, a human being, and everything in their life, from work, relationships, stress loads. Not that I'm like going deep into that, but definitely taking that into consideration for their training. And then we go into strength training, prehab, mobility, breathing exercises, visualization. All of those things come together. And so I do think it's not just about the running. It's not just about strength training. It's really all encompassing. Nutrition, things like that. So.
And how important are races in that kind of process? You know, the kind of building up the training. You know, and as you say, like having those goals to work towards.
I think for some people, probably for maybe a majority of people, but definitely some people, having a race on the calendar is super helpful for motivation. And then it can really be an anchor point for how we structure the training, for sure. I wouldn't say it's necessary, you know. I think that we can train. We can still feel like we have a purpose to be showing up every day without something on the calendar. I think it just needs a little bit of creativity, and whether it's like, someone wants to run up Table Mountain and do the 12 Apostles and feel healthy at the end of that. We can build towards that and keep it exciting. But absolutely having a race on the calendar, and usually when people walk away from a race experience, they're like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Like there was so much excitement, and it is pretty cool when you see people go through like the full process.
Yeah. Should we talk about the elephant in the room, the big word, injuries?
Yeah. Yeah, good old injuries.
You've had a lot.
I have, yeah.
In such a short space.
Yeah. I think even when I was introduced to trail and ultra running, I had a friend, a buddy who was like, most of the female athletes get into this sport and they light up and then they burn out. And it pissed me off a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to be that, and I'm not going to be. And then, it kind of happened to me. I'm thankful that I'm here today and I'm feeling healthy. But I think there is a lot under the surface that for someone getting into the sport may not realize. And I think, I fell into a lot of those traps of overtraining, burnout, underfueling, and got myself into some health trouble. And it took me, a year and a half to get out of that. And that was like clawing at the side of a dark hole for a long time. And it really sucks when you're in it. It can be super confusing. You can feel really isolated, especially when you throw everything in your life at it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this wall is put up and you're just watching it as a spectator, and time is just flying by. But there are those silver linings, and I've learned a lot from it. Everything from preventing relative energy deficiency in sport for other people, and myself having gone through it. Basically chronic low energy availability and not realizing I was underfueling, and that just led to like a whole cornucopia of injuries and hormone issues, and it can take a long time for your body to feel like safe again. And get yourself out of that. And then I realized, like, hey, you can still show up to a race even if you can't participate directly. You can volunteer, you can crew, you can cheer your friends on, and it's like a really good time. And sometimes it's almost like, oh, I'm almost glad I'm not racing. Like I get to witness this, and it's just, it's super fun. So there was those moments where I was very grateful for, and then still actually coaching, surprisingly, while I was injured, was actually really good for my mindset, and just being able to still kind of be a part of people's training and getting them to the start line was really, really cool. And I've learned a lot more about different injuries and red S and all those things. So,
in terms of prevention going forward, have you kind of learned those lessons, and do you feel like you have that pretty dialed in now?
Yeah. I think oftentimes the less is more, or training less can be the smarter thing. Or I do a lot of cross training now using the bike, things like that. And then I think now just having that more mature voice of like, I may have had some sort of volume goal for the week, but that can go out the window anytime. And I think less is more is the main thing for training. And then fueling, huge. I think just your recovery starts before the training session. So everything like, lots of carbohydrates, never ever skipping breakfast, eating first thing in the day, and then protecting all of my training sessions. And yeah, nutrition should be periodized with your training. All those great things.
Yeah.
Simple, but really good.
And how does a typical training week kind of look? Is it, again, race specific? Do you have an off season? How does that all kind of come together?
Yeah. Definitely training can be race specific. So yeah, in the lead up, basically after my last race, the Rut in September, knew I was going to be doing this. And I think it was like just kind of switching, doing some base mileage, starting to do some speed work, and then working on lots of volume to get myself ready for 100K again. Yeah, I guess my training week, I do max 2 workouts a week, and usually I'll have one midweek and then typically a long run with some intensity in it. Yeah, I think the race simulator workout is probably the most important for me. And then I have been on the road for the past 2 months or so. So with travel, things like that, or sometimes whether it's doing different events, or like we had a North Face Summit a few weeks ago, and your schedule is like kind of out of your hands, and so it's just always adapting with that. And yeah, it's like, all right, maybe today is not the day to do a workout. Whether it's driving and things like that, life happens. We all have things going on. Yeah, so being like adaptive and all that stuff. And off season, we'll start the day after this race.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so much looking forward to that, and just having some beach time, more of a true vacay. And then once I get back to North America, I'll be skiing, strapping some skis on, and
amazing.
Go chase some snow. So.
Yeah. How important is that, I guess mentally as well as kind of like physically?
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Yeah, most definitely. I think just give your body a break from the running, the pounding. And then I just love different ways of moving in the mountains. So skiing still gets you up super high, and sometimes the winterscapes are like some of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. So yeah, and just the feeling of different types of movement, like skiing can be just like pure joy, So
I think there's kind of a new buzzword around like the mental health aspect of trail running and the resilience aspect. Are there kind of lessons you've learned in that aspect, especially having those kind of lows, and you kind of employ them in kind of the race situation?
I think with my first serious injury, I can remember the day. It was like life-shattering, or it just felt like everything was falling apart. And getting like some bad news from a doctor, it's like going through all the stages of grief so viscerally. Denial, anger, frustration, like severe sadness and depression. And then like finally you slowly come out to the other side of like acceptance. And that for sure rings true. I think now whenever something pops up, I can definitely get to acceptance much faster.
Okay,
and there's like less of that wallowing and kicking and all those things. So yeah, I think even now, and you can bring that forward into any issue or problem in life, and just kind of like, it is what it is, and we're going to make the best of this situation. And like, what are the things that we can control, and what is some action that can be taken. So yeah, I think in ultras, in daily life, when you're being dealt a lemon, or some sort of challenge that coming up upon, it's being able to accept, but then, kind of have that like broad sweeping view, all seeing eye, and start moving forward.
When you hit kind of low points in races, and I suppose we can also go back to UTMB with the DNF,
Yeah.
How do you kind of make that kind of decision? Is this like a injury? Is this like a mental low? Do I push on? That kind of thinking process.
Yeah, when I was at UTMB running CCC, that was actually a very simple decision. So I think I got an easy card out in terms of like my knee was just locking up on the downhills, and it was 20K into the race.
Sure.
And it was just, this is happening way too early. If that had happened at 80K, and I only had a remaining little bit to run, I probably would have had a tougher decision to make. Do I push through and potentially injure myself, or do I finish this race? And sometimes we have to make that judgment call and be okay with the risks that you have to take. I do remember, in some other races like Trans-Gran Canaria, that was a tough race. It was definitely, as Courtney Walter would say, it was like a pain cave, what felt like the majority of that race.
Sure.
And every step forward was like a struggle. And I think, you got a lot of time to think about things for sure, of why you're doing it. And every athlete I work with, that's my first question to them is why. What is your why? And I think it's massively important before every race that you ever show up to have your why ready in your back pocket. Like it's got to be there. And if you've got multiple whys, great. Use them all. Use them at different points. Like we all need them for anything that we're doing in life that has a purpose. And so whether it's like, I'm doing this like for myself, whether it's the feeling of running a long distance, the challenge, or I'm doing this like to be here with the community. I know my mom is watching, to like, I've got to catch this person ahead of me. I think all the reasons of as many as you can, whether it's intrinsic motivation or extrinsic. I think they both have a place. Definitely having those like enjoyment factors will take you longer for sure.
You're a sponsored athlete, professional athlete with North Face. How did that relationship kind of start? Was that after Canyons, and what was the kind of decision making, on that? And then obviously how's that kind of evolved?
My relationship with the North Face, it started after Canyons, and after that race, I remember Meg from I Run Far, she was like, your life is about to change. And she was pretty right. I talked to a number of different brands. I think I realized that I really wanted to be with a brand that I could identify with. And what I love about the North Face is it's kind of like an all-encompassing mountain athlete. I was just at the summit, and we're with athletes from all over the world who ski, climb, mountaineer, boulder. They go to the Olympics, snowboard, trail run, like all these different things. And I may not do all of them, but I definitely can identify with, like I said earlier, moving in different ways in the mountains. And the North Face is massive support. And I just love the all mountain aspect for sure.
And what does that kind of relationship with that brand, with the brand, kind of give you? What is what drives that?
I think for most professional athletes, it's a bit of a symbiotic relationship. We get supported for getting to these races,
Mm.
and then just having additional support to live life and feed myself and have a bit of a roof over my head. I wouldn't say we're making tons of money out there as professional athletes. The trail running world still has a ways to grow. And it's moving in that right direction for sure. Yeah, so it is a massive, I'm super grateful for it.
And what role does your teammates, play in that world?
Man, I mean, yeah, they're like family, super fun. Yeah, we get to meet up at least a few times of the year. And then even coming to these races when you've got a few teammates that are showing up. I mean, you go to UTMB and it's like this huge reunion, and super special, most definitely. I think my biggest takeaway with trail running is it just makes the world feel that much more connected, for sure. So yeah, no, the teammates are huge. And what I love about the North Face team is just a bunch of very authentic people, lots of variety, and we're all doing kind of different things, but there's really good overlap and just really real.
You've mentioned, and I know you've written about it and spoken about the role of women in trail running. It's definitely booming alongside the boom of trail running. What do you kind of attribute that to? And what do you kind of see for the future of women in trail running?
Totally. Yeah, I think there's still a lot of room for more women at the start lines of most races. And yeah, I think we can all be amazing role models. And, when I was young, if I had known that there was trail and ultra running out there, I definitely would have gravitated to it like a lot earlier. Yeah, I think there's room for more competition on the female side, definitely. And I think, yeah, it is exciting to see that shifting more and more, but definitely in the ultra space. It'll be cool to watch for the next 10 years as like the times get closer and we keep breaking records. Definitely here for it. I do think race coverage, it's getting there. Still, though, I've been watching a lot of live streams, and sometimes it still is like we're just not quite getting the women behind the camera or talked about as much. So it's kind of like we know the men's stories a lot more, so it can make it more interesting. And like, I get caught up in it too. But we need to start to learn the women's stories, and then that just becomes more interesting in itself. So I'm definitely here for that.
You also kind of mentioned briefly about the environment. What role do you think kind of we have to play in that? And do you think that there is enough being done in that sort of space?
Definitely not enough being done. Yeah, I think step one is like awareness, education, becoming aware of our footprint being left behind when we run trails. It can be like little things from when we come to these races, especially international ones. Everything from making sure our shoes are clean, we don't have any seeds on us. International travel often brings along, whether it's different species seeds that we're carrying around with us. So what races could be doing is just whether it's like an educational pamphlet and like asking people to clean any mud, dirt, seeds off of their clothing and shoes. I have looked at a number of studies that was able to prove that races are bringing invasive species to other countries. So I mean, running here in Cape Town, it's like I don't want to be bringing a plant that could become super invasive here, and that I was just reading this morning about this plant that's growing up, the silver bush or something like that. I found it very beautiful. It was going up in the in the garden area there, and it's a rare and endangered species, and this is one of the last areas that it grows. And they're basically predicting that it will probably go extinct in the next 50 years. And that's pretty real. It's probably got a bunch of different things at play, whether it's climate change, urbanization. But when I see plants here that are growing from North America, immediately I'm like, that's an invasive plant. And I do see that wherever I go, for sure. So that's like one very tangible thing that all races and runners can be doing basically on a daily basis.
That's very interesting. And if someone's looking to get into trail running, what is the kind of secret sauce, the golden nugget that you kind of give them?
I think it's just find your spark. What gets you excited? What gets you curious? I think we're all individuals, and there might be something that different that drives us. Some people are into, going really fast, shorter races. Or it's like the super ultra distances, and it's just finding what fuels your fire and keep fueling it.
And looking ahead for you, you did mention you're going to have a bit of an off season. What does the next year look like? What is the future? What are the big goals still to come?
Next year, all right, I'm going to take a bit of downtime. And then into the new year, I'm hoping to get back to TGC. We'll see if I can pull it off. I might run one of the other distances there, but it'd be cool to go back to Gran Canaria. And then, I might be eyeing up a golden ticket. So we'll see. TBD, basically, that will give you a hint. I have 2 options to be going after next spring. So whether that's in Europe or North America, we'll see. And that might determine the rest of my summer. Otherwise, I am slated. I could be going for OCC if I want to. But I would love to get to World Champs. And I think that would be really special. It's only every 2 years. So it'd be really cool to get there. So got some work cut out for me. And
big races you still want to do, or you still want to do well at?
No, I definitely do thrive. I think I like it when there's some heavy competition. I think it just stirs the fire a little bit more. So whether it's Western States or Canyons again, World Champs, getting back to UTMB. I am thinking long term, so I'm trying to spread things out. And I would like to do some more shorter distance races as well. So I'll throw in some 50Ks in there.
Nice.
Nothing much shorter than that for me. But trying to spread things out, definitely, and keep it smart.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much. This is incredible. Thank you so much for joining me.
Super rad. It's been a pleasure.
Good luck for the race.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Feeling fired up after this incredible episode? Dive deeper into the world of trail running by exploring our other episodes, available wherever you get your podcasts. We're eagerly awaiting your feedback as well, so connect with us on Instagram @TrailChasersPod. Don't hold back. Like, comment, message, and share your thoughts. Until next week, keep chasing those trails.